Welcome to Capacity Conscious Marketing. If you're a coach or practitioner with a busy brain that just never seems to work with the norm, then you are in the right place. I'm your host, Polly Pollock, and in these episodes, I'm going to be teaching you how to get visible, create reputation online, and sell your signature offer predictably without social media. I'll teach you everything I've learned over the last decade about building a capacity-conscious, life-first, profitable business that's driven by human connection rather than trendy tactics that burn you out, all in a way that works hand in hand with your unique strengths. All right, let's dive in. Okay, welcome back to what is now the Capacity Conscious Marketing Podcast. So you may have noticed that we've had a little bit of a rebrand on the podcast and honestly just the back end here of the business, and I could not be happier. Honestly, I feel really good now that everything is kind of congruent and it's kind of being led by, I guess, the movement that I am trying to create, which is now, it's really feeling aligned with the name. I'm really bringing that methodology kind of forward to be front and center, and I just feel like it encompasses, like I said, kind of the movement and the way that I help and support my people. So I'm very happy about that. So today we're going to be diving into something a little bit different. I am very aware that I've been talking about strategy a lot on this podcast recently, obviously, because without the strategy, we're just all going to be walking around like dickheads, not knowing what to do, which may be how you've been feeling, I don't know, for the last however long. I feel like that's how a lot of people kind of feel before they come and work with me, is that they have just been flying by the seat of their pants. So we need the strategy, but there is also this whole underlayer to this whole game of business and marketing, especially in the online world, which is just noisy and very destabilizing sometimes, I guess, is the word that I can think of off the bat. Can feel like a lot. And so I'm really excited for this episode. We're going to be diving into some exercises around kind of moving past your fear of visibility. And we're actually going to be, so while I was making the notes for this episode, I was like, okay, I know what I'm going to walk people through. And then I was like, oh wait, I'm just going to get my book out, because there's a really great exercise in the book that I wrote. And if you don't know, I'm a published author. Very, very pleasing to 10-year-old me who wanted to be an author. I'm not in any hurry to write another book though. It was freaking hard, like for my little ADHD brain. But I did love writing it. Even though it was challenging. But I took a little excerpt kind of part of the book out of there, because I thought actually it sums up exactly what I'm trying to walk you through in this episode. So moving through your fear of visibility, especially when we're doing this kind of the unconventional way of, non-social media marketing, where you're actually going to be getting seen in places where it does require more depth from you. Which is great, because that's probably the thing that you find easiest and you find easiest. But maybe when you are thinking about getting more visible, or when you're thinking about speaking or something like that, you maybe feel like you're shitting a brick a little bit, because, I don't know, maybe you're scared of fucking up, or you're scared of people judging you, whatever it is. And in this episode, we're going to be identifying those beliefs. We're going to be tracing them back. We're going to be looking at the first step of rewriting those beliefs so that you can actually feel comfortable with visibility, because you can have all the strategy in the world. And like I said, strategy is incredibly important. But if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel comfortable, if you don't feel like you can be, safe in the process, you're just going to keep going back to either busy work or, playing small, or just honestly reverting back to just posting on Instagram and hoping for the best. And I see this all the time. So we're going to be going into kind of the underlayer of that. So before we dive into that, I just want to remind you that I've got a few spaces open for the Neurofriendly Sales Accelerator, which is NFSA, which is my 4-month signature marketing mentorship for coaches and practitioners with busy brains. It's really designed for people who want to take their business full time and beyond with what I call now capacity conscious marketing that doesn't rely on social media. So I have a few spaces open at the time of this recording. So the format of NFSA is majority one-to-one. So every single week I'm going to be working with you. Obviously it's in the community, but you get one-to-one feedback from me every single week. We have 2 feedback days where it's async, so you submit what you're working on from the curriculum, and then I give you video feedback and the next steps, and we're working together async pretty much all the time. You get weekly group calls as well. Obviously within that is one-to-one hot seat hot seat coaching, where we're still going to have one-to-one FaceTime, so it's not like you're going to be kind of lost in the group. And like I said, overall it's 4 months of support from me, and I will guide you through the process from all literally end to end, so all the way from like the niche clarity, messaging clarity, kind of refining your signature offer, to visibility without social media. So looking at where you're best kind of positioned to show up, where you're going to be able to find your ideal clients, relationship building, email marketing. That's the central hub of our marketing. So, rather than kind of aimlessly posting every day, that's going to be the engine of our marketing is your email community. And then all the way to bringing consistent sales into your signature offer through that. And so the whole ecosystem is literally built with you end to end. And then also it's my support there with the fears, the doubts, the wobbles, inevitably the resistance that kind of comes up within that. So please go ahead and apply if that sounds like it's for you, and maybe you've been kind of thinking about it for a while. So you can go ahead and apply now. If you go to pollypollock.com/NFSA, you can go and apply that, and then we can literally just see if it's a fit. We can hop on the call. And if it is a fit, we can look at how to move you forward. If it's not a fit, I can just point you in the right direction and maybe send you away with a couple resources, and we can go from there. So that's pollypollock.com/NFSA. If you're wondering, before it was neuropreneurrising.com /NFSA, that's because obviously with this rebrand, I have gone back to pollypollock.com. Honestly, if I'm being so real, people can't pronounce Neuropreneur Rising. They see it written on the screen and they're like, neuro, and I'm like, fuck, dude, it's Neuropreneur Rising. So anyway, nice and simple, pollypollock.com /NFSA. Okay, let's get into the episode. So, like I kind of said at the beginning of this episode, I think a lot of coaches, practitioners in the online space, they don't know how to market beyond Instagram. I've spoken about this a lot. We're dealing with, this massive wave of people who have started their businesses in the last few years, and they're like, the fuck? What do you mean market without Instagram? If not Instagram, where am I going to market? And this is something that I'm hearing again and again and again and again, like literally every time I speak to someone new. And if that's you, you've probably been taught that you need to, post consistently every day, 3 times a day, 5 times a minute, whatever the fuck it is. Create reels, focus on just like the follower count, stay visible every day, otherwise you're gonna like lose relevance. Oh, that's a lovely fear to instill in someone, isn't it? That's not how it works when you actually look at reputation driven marketing. But hey ho, sorry, just being a little bit snide. So yes, there's absolutely a strategy gap. Like I said, if we don't have strategy, we're just walking around aimlessly, like flying by the seat of our pants. So strategy allows you to have that freedom in yourself, in your life, and in your business. We need the strategy. But there is also this other layer, and it's normally kind of running the show, because the thing is with strategy also needs action. And the thing that stops people from taking action a lot of the time is this fear. Fear of being seen. Maybe you sometimes do know what you could do next, but you keep putting it off. I actually see this with new students. When we go through the strategy, they kind of say, oh, well, and this isn't calling anybody out, because this is just a normal thing that our systems are designed to do. And that's my job as the mentor, is to kind of gently guide people through and past this, right? So there's no shame if this is you. This is everybody at any point of starting out and growing. But we have the plan laid out, and it's like, I think I'm going to redo my sales page. I think I'm going to redo my email sequence. I think I'm going to just like fuck around on Canva. It's really urgent, but like, I just gotta redo my sales page. And it's like, but what if you don't, you know? So maybe that's you. Maybe you know what you could do next, but you keep going back to the busy work, and you keep yourself really, really busy, and then it's just an excuse to kind of put off the thing that you know actually is the thing that's going to move the needle. But deep down, if you're honest, you're probably scared. You know, or you could be convincing yourself, for example, that like social media is the only option, or it's like the option that everybody tells you to do, so therefore you need to do it as well because you don't maybe trust yourself enough to back away from that. And this is the thing, like, your brain, you don't know what you don't know, but sometimes your brain and your system also wants you to stay where everybody else is because, again, it's safety, right? So safety is the thing that is running the show in all of this. So my own experience with actually, you know, the last few years, I've been definitely rebuilding my marketing to work in a way that works for me. But it wasn't until last year that I fully came off of social media. And when I came off of social media fully last year, like it actually made me question myself because so many people in my industry, I had past mentors reach out to me saying, what if you're making a mistake? Like, are you sure you want to do this? You have such a big social media presence, like all of this kind of shit. And I knew logically that like, this is a strategy that's already working for me. I don't actually need to be on social media. It doesn't make sense. Why am I worrying about this? Why am I questioning? Why am I second guessing myself? And I, you know, for a minute I had to, I thought like, holy shit, like, am I making a big mistake somehow? Even though I trust myself because I've seen the results, but I've got people around me saying different. I thought for a minute, like, am I actually delusional? Oh, what's going on? What the fuck? And I just really had to snap out of it because I then had to just, like I said, go back to the logic of what I already knew, but look at, okay, this is other people and they're operating from a, like, what they want, and they're kind of, you know, unintentionally projecting that onto me. That's what everybody does, you know, when they care about you, when they're, you know, when they're used to doing things their way, they're going to say, oh, you can't do that. But what that actually means is I can't do that. Or I don't know how to do that. And that can sometimes be projected onto us. And that I had to like really look at that from like, okay, I know what's happening here. And so that was like a little blip for me last year. And I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes choosing a different path feels really, really scary because it's different, but not like necessarily because it's wrong. And that will be probably feeding into your fears in business at any given time. So kind of coming round to how this links to the fear of visibility and what that can actually look like. So sometimes in our brains, and this might be happening for you, you might not be thinking, yeah, no, I'm afraid of being visible. Like that might not be the first thing that comes into your head. But what that can look like is, well, everybody's telling me that I can't get clients without social media, so I can't. Or I need more followers, or I can't pitch to podcasts or companies until I'm more established, or I'm not ready to speak yet, or I'm not a good speaker, I don't know enough. Someone's going to put, this is such a big one with new students, is what if someone puts me on the spot and asks me something that I don't know, which I could go into like so deeply, but I'll come back to it. What if somebody calls me out is a big one. What if someone like disagrees with me? What if I fuck it up? What if I stutter? Like, what if I forget what I'm saying? Like, what if people judge me? All of this shit. Like, what if I don't, this was a big one of mine, actually. It was, what if I don't sound or look professional enough? So all of these things that are actually the underlayer of your fear of visibility, that's still the fear of visibility, you know, but it kind of comes out in more like perfectionist traits, you know, and the self-criticism is actually your fear of visibility. And that's kind of the key here of where it tends to show up. So yeah, the strategy or the ability or the action can sometimes become the excuse when the actual barrier is like your feeling of safety and confidence when it comes to being seen. So one of my NFSA students actually told me a couple of weeks ago she was literally shitting a brick about pitching podcasts and speaking. She is highly trained in what she does. She's really, really great at what she does. She's already spent like 6 to 12 months posting on social media, which is why she joined NFSA, because she was getting literally nada. And so we're at that point now, well, we were a couple of weeks ago, of, you know, we're kind of like rounding off the niche clarity, the signature offer clarity, the messaging, and we're on the visibility point. And she's like, I am shitting a brick. And again, she's got everything laid out. Like, I walk everybody through it really end to end, so you know exactly what to do, and then I help you, I mentor you in the process of actually implementing it, and I give you feedback on the work and stuff like that, right? But she's got that initial thing set out, but she knows, she's very aware that it's like, I'm fucking terrified. And honestly, like, you bypass so much stuff when you can be honest about the fact that you're scared. And I so like honor her, because she does wear her heart on her sleeve, and I think it's so beautiful. And I think if you're listening, you know who you are. I think maybe, but she, yeah, I really do honor her, because she's very upfront about stuff like that. And I think when you can be upfront, it just bypasses a whole load of shit of like denial. So we're gonna get her there a lot quicker because of that. But yeah, she, you know, social media hadn't brought her clients, and she's now like at the point where visibility obviously is that next step, and she's like, fuck, people are actually going to see me now. And that, yeah, sometimes, like I said, like sometimes the thing that you know is going to move your business forward is also the thing that you're going to want to avoid most. And this is where it kind of comes to our upper limit around visibility. And this is the thing as well, right? We see fear, and I did a recent podcast episode on this, and actually how feeling fear is a really good thing in business. But we see fear and, you know, self-doubt and times of fear and self-doubt as a really bad thing in business, in life. And it's not, because we all have places where our current capacity gets stretched, and we are tested, and we're maybe kind of pushed out of our comfort zone a little bit. And that's the thing of like, just forcing yourself through it and just pushing past the fear isn't going to work. Like, it's just not going to work. Yes, of course, that the action of like taking the leap and kind of taking the plunge a little bit, absolutely, but not like emotionally forcing yourself through it and pushing past the fear and trying to act like it doesn't exist. That shit just does not work. And so what we try and work on is like gently expanding what feels safe and what feels possible. And like, it's baby steps, and it all comes from, it's like an inside to outside job, you know? And so if you don't work with what's coming up, if you do just try and force yourself past it, you will just keep reverting to what feels familiar. That's, again, is the default, right? You'll procrastinate, you'll find another task, you'll find another excuse about why you're too overwhelmed or too busy. You'll convince yourself you need more prep. You'll keep returning to probably Instagram or posting every friggin' minute, because that's what everybody else is doing. That's what feels safe, because it's strength in numbers, and you've got proof, even though it hasn't actually brought you in any substantial clients. That to your brain is proof, because you see other people doing the, like, in the kind of the motion of it. And so realistically, this all comes down to, like, you can't sustainably build beyond the level you're willing to be seen at. That's it. And this is why it's like a gentle increase of that upper limit, and you have to be willing to work towards that, rather than just kind of like, and again, this is where it all starts, is actually knowing where that comes from. So an exercise I'm going to pull out of my book for you is finding the actual belief underneath the fear. So if you're driving, it's all good, or like walking, pause the episode and grab a pen and paper if you can. If not, you can always come back to this later, but I really would recommend doing this, especially if you know that this is something that you're struggling with. I really, really do would love it if you did this exercise, because I think it's going to be really beneficial for you. So go ahead and grab a paper and a pen and pick one visibility fear to start off with. You can revisit this after the episode or at another time, and kind of do this with multiple beliefs. But it's never just I'm afraid of being visible. We normally have little sub beliefs under that. So maybe it's like, I'm afraid someone will call me out or put me on the spot. I'm afraid I'm going to look stupid, or I'm afraid I'm going to fuck up. I'm afraid that people won't like me. I'm afraid that someone won't agree with me. Look at kind of what that one belief is that you want to start with. So choose that first belief that comes up when you think about, getting more visible, and start with that. And then the second step here is looking at what feeling that creates in you. So the feeling is so important with this. It's, our minds are great, but the body is also there to feel and to give us signals. So what feeling does that create within you when you actually think about that belief and you give that belief some weight? What does that create feeling wise? Is it like fear or shame or embarrassment or anxiety, like vulnerability, like pressure, and just like you can almost feel the cortisol in your arms, like, because it's like, fuck, that is too much. So second, just like write down the feeling that comes with that. And then this is the most important part. I'm going to give some of my examples in a minute, so you can kind of see how this all links together. So where does that belief come from? This is step 3. So think about, like, where have you felt this before? And again, if this feels safe to do so, if you feel like this is too heavy or this is not a good time to kind of start revisiting kind of past shit that you'd rather not drag up, it's all good. You can just pause this and come back, at a time where you feel safe to do so. But where have you kind of felt this before? Like, is it school? Is it childhood? Is it teen years? Is it maybe like previous workplace? I know so many of you in this listener base are like ex-corporate girlies, and like, same, I get you. That shit is traumatizing as fuck. So maybe it's that. Maybe it's actually past business experiences. Was this maybe something more complex that you learn over a span of years, that you learned gradually? Was there like a particular, like, one experience that reinforced that belief? So try and look at that. And again, might be helpful for you just to pause the episode. And honestly, this might take a while for you to actually unlock that. And I would really recommend, actually, if you need something else to do, if you feel like, oh, it's not coming out, sometimes actually that something that's a little bit more useful. This is actually back in the day, this is where my like shadow work journey started out. I just got out my phone and I started recording, and I spoke, and I just, like, everything came out in a video diary. I remember I was home alone one day, Jack was out, and I just traced it back, and I just spoke. And it was like, oh fuck, there it is. Weird. So maybe that's more helpful. But, if maybe you've already done a little bit of this work, I don't know how kind of new you are to it. Maybe you kind of have an inkling. So look at where that belief comes from. And then this next kind of step is looking at the pattern of where this belief has actually been playing out up until now, up until this fear. How else has this played out? In your life, other than being afraid of, being called out online, or whatever your fear that you chose was. How has this played out in other areas of your life? And when you kind of go through this process, you kind of start to realize that the fear might not actually be about just visibility. Our fears aren't magically, they don't magically turn up for no reason. And a lot of the time, the fear that we're feeling links to a few different under kind of beliefs that are about much more than just business, right? So this is a really great place to start, because understanding obviously is not fixing, not that we need to, like, quote unquote fix, but it's not it's not the thing that actually moves you past it. Understanding is the first part of that. Finding the root doesn't magically make the fear disappear, but you're not trying to like think yourself out of a response from your system. You're not trying to like trick your brain out of it, but understanding it definitely gives you context, and then you can recognize like, okay, maybe this is something that I learned, but also this isn't a objective prediction of what's going to happen. This is just evidence that my brain and my system has created, based off of a fear that is, essentially trying to protect me from experiencing some kind of feeling or some kind of, heartache or whatever it is. And that kind of knowledge is what helps you to actually understand, like, this isn't true going forward, and this isn't about me as the person, so that's really where this all starts. And realistically, a lot of the shit for many of us happened, in childhood, and from the age of like 12, 13, I mean, what is it? Yeah, like 12, I think, backwards. Pretty much everything that you hear and are told, you take as truth. And so that's what your brain has always known as truth. And then that just is reinforced when you don't know how to kind of, think on your own terms, or you haven't done any of this work, because we don't as children and young adults. It's obviously not something that a lot of us do. And so we need to revisit it now in adult life. And we're like, oh, that makes sense. Bit fucking delayed, but like, at least I understand now. But, also knowing that, if these beliefs did start when you were a kid, you probably took that as truth then. And so that is why your brain, well, part of the reason why your brain solidifies that as evidence. Does that kind of make sense? And so when you're understanding where these things come from, and you have some kind of logic that you can put in it, and you have some kind of self-understanding, you can then look at what else could be true. You could then look at what else could be true from a sense of, what are all the things that could go right? And obviously the way that we're wired is we're designed to first jump to the worst case scenario. It's like the bias of worrying about something, basically, rather than saying, oh, this could go really well. And that's the thing, obviously, that can change. That's not like, that's why we can kind of retrain ourselves to release that gripping and not jump to the shittiest thing. But along with that is also, like, obviously looking at what else could be true. Like, oh, I could go on this podcast, or I could speak at this event, or I could, partner with this company, or I could teach in this community and it could go really well. It could land me some clients. People could get real value from it. I could help some people. I could connect with people on a level that they haven't been connected with before. All of those things, yes, 100%. But a part of that ability to like release the gripping is also looking at, it's not going to be the end of the world if part of that fear does come true. And this is the resilience that we have to build as business owners, is like, someone might disagree with you, right? Take that as the original fear. But maybe they disagree with you and nothing happens, and that's okay. People are allowed to disagree with you, right? Maybe they disagree with you and you have a really awesome conversation from it. Maybe they're just not your people. You just do not need to appeal to everybody, and that's like, okay. And that's the thing that we can often be like, oh, I don't know, but what if people don't like me? Obviously now I can hand on heart say, like, I don't give a fuck who likes me or not. But that was not the case when I first started my business. Absolutely not. That was not the case in any of my life before I started my business. Terrified I was of people not liking me. Maybe someone finds your perspective really, really valuable. Maybe you just don't need everybody to like you, And so, yeah, it's really important that you, yes, give yourself the permission to think on the more like, okay, what could go right? But also giving that fear some kind of reassurance that not necessarily like nothing's ever going to go wrong for you, it's perfect, everything's fine, because that's just bypassing. But looking at like, okay, what if not everybody does like you? What if you do stutter over your words? Okay, it doesn't matter. No one's going to remember. Like, whatever it is, really looking at, okay, that's not the end of the world. And and not necessarily like placating, like, but having, again, this is how we build resilience, because we don't let those things amass into these big out of control fears that actually don't have any weight. Sometimes bringing understanding to the fear itself is the thing that makes the fear less scary. So just a little personal example here. One of my main fears in business was, what if somebody doesn't like what I have to say? What if somebody disagrees with me? That was really scary for me. And the fear that I could think of behind that is like, okay, what if somebody doesn't like me, and then they like spread, like give me a bad name on the internet, and then people think I'm a bad person, which is has always been honestly my fear. And it probably is still a fear to a degree, but not in the same way that it was. I was terrified of that. People think I'm a bad person, and then I'll lose my clients, and then my business will go under. So with that kind of chain of fear, I had to, and this was something that I did in my first business, I had to really look at, okay, where's that coming from? Because it was eating me alive. So did some work, kind of looked at where this kind of traces back from. Really, I felt in my body the feeling, and I could then, it like took me back to a time where I was like, fuck, that's it. I know that's it. And it was like, someone doesn't like me, they'll spread rumours around school, I'll lose all my friends, I'll be bullied, and school will become literally unbearable. And that's what happened for me. I got really, really badly bullied in high school. Well, in primary school, middle school, and in high school. But the thing in high school that really, really kicked it off was there was this completely untrue rumour that was spread about me, that I had said something awful about a family member of someone who's meant to be my friend. Obviously she was a fucking bitch. And I'm so not like above, like, like everybody, we need to speak nice about everybody. Sometimes people are just a fucking bitch, and it's all good. But she was a real bitch. And she had spread this rumor, like it was dreadful, all around the school. And I lost all my friends. People were chasing me around school, like fully. I had groups of people, like freaking like angry mob of people, like following me around school, videoing me. And that was pretty much the catalyst to everybody in the school hating me. And I was terribly bullied after that. I got kicked out of school because I ended up just turning into a complete rebel. It was really fucked up, and school was completely unbearable, and my life really went to shit for a few years. And so it was the same fear, and it was a different environment. And I had to then do the work about like, okay, what happened then is not what is happening now. I'm not cursed. Like, this isn't a curse that's somewhere I'm like destined everywhere I go that this curse is going to play out. The only way that happens is if you let that play out, and that does become a curse when you actually don't, you break that cycle. The only thing causing that repetition is you, because you're so scared of it. And that was like the like shit, oh fuck moment of like, oh wow, and that realization really, really gave me the ability to kind of separate, what happened then is not what is destined to happen now, but I'm the change, I'm the catalyst for the change. And if I don't change that, then that will repeat itself, like I said, because it's just going to be the fear. So, like I said, we don't want to turn this into like toxic positivity. Like I said, it's like the reality check of, yeah, people might dislike you, whatever. I'm using that as like the example fear. Someone might judge you. Someone might, you might fuck something up. I fuck shit up all the time. Like, how many times an episode do you guys hear me stutter and I'm just like, who cares? I don't care. I know you guys don't. Like, I'm still delivering a bomb-ass episode. Like, I don't care. I do it on guest speaker slots all the time, and when I'm teaching, and when I'm on, I've been on like some really big podcasts recently, like top podcasts in the industry, and I fucked up and nobody cares because we're all human. And believe me, just on a separate note, in a world of AI, you need to be human. So honestly, if you fuck up, it's probably going to be doing you the world of good without you realizing. So, but yeah, someone might misunderstand you. All of these things are out of your control, because the perception of what someone thinks about you is out of your control, because it's going to be different for every person. So it's just not any of your business. It's just fucking not. So, the goal isn't to start believing like nothing bad will ever happen to me. Yay. It's like, no, I don't really believe in mistakes. I don't really believe in like in a business sense, obviously terrible bad things happen to people. I'm not saying I don't believe in bad things that way. I mean, in business, like I don't believe in mistakes. I don't believe that you've fucked up beyond repair. I just think that the goal needs to be, I trust myself to handle what happens and move past, because I'm in love with the journey and I'm not attaching to every granular win. So I trust myself to handle what happens, and you can grow and refine from that. You are just not responsible for controlling everybody else's reaction. And you know what? The thing is, when you lead with value and when you market in this way and when you show up authentically, so many people are going to love you and be inspired by you. And then none of that other shit matters. But you won't see that until you actually put yourself out there. I didn't see that. I was like, no one's going to want to listen to me. I had such a chip on my shoulder. And it's because I wasn't doing anything, But just going back to to kind of this, like, I think the fear of cancel culture online kind of breeds a lot of this fear as well. I've had two of my good friends recently experience people trying to cancel them online. Like, both handled it like absolute bosses. They are two of the kindest people that I have honestly ever met. I mean, I was so inspired by the way that they both handled it. And that's the thing, is neither of them do anything provocative. They're just themselves, and they're fearlessly themselves, and they both got shit for it. And it's a normal part of business. It's a normal part of being in, granted, it does get amplified when you're on social media. But, it's another reason, if I'm honest, that I don't that I like not being on social media, because I don't have to deal with this sort of childish bullshit. You're less likely for some bitch to come and cancel you off social media than you are on. However, that being said, they both handled it really, really well. They were both just under complete false allegations, and honestly, it was just ridiculous. But it blew over literally after the weekend. And that just goes to show people move on. The internet moves on. Anything that you think that you have done or are experiencing, believe me, it will blow all over. Like, my mum used to say to me when I got very badly bullied in school, there was a little saying, and she used to say, today's news is tomorrow's chip paper, which, if you're not British, is probably, what do you mean chip paper? What chip paper? I mean like fries, not crisps. Oh my gosh, the language differences is just sometimes hilarious. Honestly, some of my American students are just like, what the fuck are you even talking about, Paul? So chip paper, it's like, you get like fish and chips in England. And anyway, I'm trying to explain this, but we used to wrap it in newspaper, and then that used to be the thing. And so basically it's, today's news is tomorrow's, just going to be using that to pack up the chips because no one gives a fuck. So that's the saying. But people move on. You don't you don't need to build your entire business around avoiding the possibility that someone might dislike you, or someone might misunderstand you, or you're going to mess something up, or whatever the fear is. So and the people who really truly need your work, they need you to be willing to be seen. They really, really do. And it's when you're not seen in a real deep way, if you are just spending all your time kind of hiding in places where you're not feeling good about showing up, and you're not showing up in front of the right people, strategically, and you don't feel safe enough to do so, it's a disservice to you, and it's also a disservice to the people who really need your work. That's the way I like to think about it. And so, also my next kind of part is just being okay with being where you're at. If I could go back and just change my mindset around this, I really would. You're allowed to be a beginner. Your first podcast isn't going to be your best podcast. Your first talk isn't going to be your best talk. Your first interview might feel awkward, and you might be really self-critical because maybe you're still building, yes, the skills, yes, the strategy, but also the internal strength to not be so fucking self-critical. You might beat yourself up, and, try not to, because it's fucking pointless and it wastes a lot of time. But you refine, you learn, you get better. And like I said, you have to fall in love with the journey, because if you are constantly demanding from yourself, like, I need to be the best immediately, like, I believe me, I've done this shit. I didn't used to think I was a perfectionist, and then I actually, like, again, it was more kind of semi recently, like even last year, I was like, shit, dude, I am definitely, I fall into those traps. And so that was a really big learning curve for me. Stop expecting yourself to be perfect on the first try, because no one is. Like, literally nobody is. And if you keep demanding that from yourself, you'll never give yourself permission to actually become amazing at what you do. So if you've spent a while kind of running your business through self-pressure, perfectionism, just self-criticism, constantly trying to be better, constantly looking at other people saying, oh, why can't I be as good as them? Like, all of that, feeling like you're never quite there yet. And it kind of has been making you miserable. I'm not surprised, because it does make you feel less, it makes you feel less magnetic, because people can feel when you're performing a version of you, especially when you are focusing on the marketing strategies that are more depth-led and heart-led, and you really get to go deep with people. People need to feel you. People don't need this polished, like, facade of who you think you need to be. Like, they really, really don't. They need the value that you bring through the expertise of the work you do, and they need your story, and they need you being authentic. That's really it. You don't need to be the most, like, professional person on the blog. So to round off, you know the main split with all of this is, obviously, you need the strategy to know where your people are, which places to actually be seen in, whether that's like, podcast events, summits, speaker opportunities, even stages, if that's your thing, partnerships with companies. You need to know actually how to get your foot in the door with those places, and actually how to land those opportunities, what to talk about, how to build those relationships, and then most importantly, how to turn that visibility into clients and bring people into your world. That's the strategy with that first stage of all of this, right? When it comes to visibility. But that will fall flat if you don't have the internal capacity to be seen, to be questioned, to be like, I love being questioned now. I hated it before, because it does so much for me, because, like, that's how I work best now that I'm more confident with that. But, to be questioned, to be imperfect, to be disliked, to try new things, to not know exactly what will happen, again, was really hard for me. And to keep showing up anyway. So, like I said, a part of this is being more willing, more self-trusting, getting comfortable with that uncertainty, willing to let people see the real you, and being in love with the journey, refining. That is the goal. Refine, refine, refine. You don't need to be perfect. And this will probably be, like I said, somewhere at the bottom of the fear of you being visible. And this is why I teach the strategy and the inner work. Like I said, when you're building a business kind of differently from the popular model, you're going to need both sides. You're going to need more self-trust. The strategy gives you, the how to get there. It makes sure that, the clients come in, and the inner work really helps you to kind of walk the road sustainably. We don't want to get to a point where you're just burnt out to shit because you've been operating from this facade. I want you to enjoy your business. Like, this is the thing. I always say this, like, the two things that I care about, I don't care about fluffy vanity metric shit. I just care that my students have clients coming in, their businesses are growing, they're getting visible, but I also want to know that they're happy and they're well, like, mentally and physically, and they've got time for them and they're actually enjoying their life. Like, I want you to enjoy your life, and I want you to enjoy your business, I don't want you to have a life that you love and a business that you hate. I want you to have both. So yeah, it's, the goal here really isn't to force yourself into visibility that doesn't feel right. It's really just about building the capacity to be visible in the way that you can enjoy and sustain and do really well at. So, God, this was a long freaking episode. I hope you enjoyed it. But that is it from me. Like I said, I do have a few spaces free for NFSA, and I would love to work with you if you feel called to explore that. So you can apply. Just head to pollypollock.com/NFSA, and you can apply there, see all the details, and I will speak to you soon. And I will see you next week.